Welcome to the Williston Development Review Board meeting. Today is March 20th, 2025. My name is Pete Kelly. I'm chair of the DRB. Please silence your phones and devices. Zoom attendees, please stay muted unless it's your turn to speak. For Zoom technical questions, contact the planning staff through Zoom chat. I'll begin by taking a roll call of the DRB members in attendance. Nate.
Here.
Paul.
Present.
Lisa is absent.
Present.
Scott Riley.
Here.
Dave Turner.
Here.
And the chair is present. We do have 5 in attendance. 4 are required for a quorum, so we do have a quorum. The following items are on tonight's agenda. We're going to start with a public forum. That's item number 1. Item number 2 is a growth management overview staff report. Today's meeting is our annual growth management meeting. And then agenda item number 3 is going to be the hearings for the new allocation requests. Then we'll go into deliberative session. Then we'll come out of deliberative session and we will have a public motions and votes. Then we will review and approve the meeting minutes of March 11th. So that's tonight's this afternoon's agenda. The Development Review Board follows rules of procedure and conducts quasi-judicial proceedings, aka public hearings like court, pursuant to Williston Unified Development Bylaw, WDB, Chapter 6 in Appendix A. The powers of the DRB are established in and limited by this bylaw, as well as state statute, and expounded upon by the staff reports for each public hearing application. As volunteer public officials, we are held to the standards of the Williston Volunteer Policy and the Williston Conflict of Interest Ordinance. For any public hearing tonight, DRB members, first question, does any member wish to be excused on account of a conflict of interest? Question number 2, does any member wish to report an ex parte contact? No. Okay, hearing none. We'll go into agenda item number 1, the public forum. This is an opportunity for anyone present here in the room or participating by Zoom to address the board on items not on today's agenda. Anyone on Zoom?
No public attendees on Zoom.
No public attendees, thank you. Okay, we'll segue into agenda item number 2, growth management overview staff report.
Alrighty, thanks, Pete. So welcome to the growth management meeting of March 2025. The growth management review areas are shown in red, yellow, and green on this map. The blue industrial zoning districts are non-residential districts. Our one allocation request this evening is in the area in green outside the sewer service area near the south quadrant of the town. So overview, growth management is approved by the Development Review Board. And it's one of the paths for constructing new dwellings in Williston. So outside the Taft Corners Form-Based Code zoning district, new dwellings must receive pre-application and discretionary permit review from the Development Review Board, and some other projects must also participate in growth management. There's one participating today. So today the DRB will review and score the project based upon the most recent version of the bylaw. Representations made by the applicant in the questionnaire and at growth management are binding, and they must be fulfilled in the subsequent permits. If there are changes proposed at a future discretionary permit that alter the growth management score, then the project may not be approvable and they may need to return to growth management. What follows is a summary of recent bylaw amendment changes that have been made to Chapter 11. So going back to October 2022 is when form-based code was adopted. Projects in the form-based code district are allocated administratively by the zoning administrator. Then in 2023, October 2023, we adopted inclusionary zoning. So that was a different track for projects outside of the traditional growth management system. That's also when the exemptions were expanded to projects proposing 4 or fewer dwellings. In January 2024, the Glazer specific plan was added into the chapter. And most recently, in June of 2024, the dwelling unit equivalent definition went away. So allocation on the table and everything in this document is a dwelling, not a dwelling unit equivalent. And that measurement is also used for the calculations of density in the bylaw. So this table illustrates all of those various paths in growth management. Where we are today is a project that's proposing 5 to 9 units in the middle column. And they have 2 options. They could either provide one home affordable at 100% the area median income. And that's still an option that they're considering on the table. They could go to growth, or they could go to discretionary permit and choose to provide that option instead. The other option highlighted in yellow is where we are today, growth management. And the only other route in this permit pathway that requires growth management are for projects for 10 or more units. So this project proposing 5 to 9 units, it must go through growth management. Or at discretionary, it could provide that 1 unit affordable.
Emily, question,
Mhm.
if that one application gets approved, gets allocated today. What would be the incentive for them to go the other path at discretionary permit application? In other words, have an affordable unit, just from an allocation approvability perspective.
Probably not if they're gonna get allocation, most likely, or if they get allocation that the proposed score is above 50 points. And their commitments are different, so there's not really an incentive for them to go that route at this point in time.
Okay.
But it's still an option that is available should they wanna go it at the DP.
Got
And
it.
that pre-application motion set the project up to either proceed to discretionary permit or growth management for the pathways in the bylaw. What follows is summaries of the rules for inclusionary zoning, and the growth target. There are dwelling units allocated 50 to the growth center, 20 in the sewer service area outside the growth center, and 10 outside the sewer service area. The bylaw also gives the DRB the option to transfer allocation from outside the sewer service area into the growth center. We are proposing that for FY 2026 on the table. All the other allocation and growth management procedure rules are baked into the staff report for the project and the allocation table, which I'll show in a moment. The DRB will be approving tables 2 and 3 in the motion. So staff has proposed a score for the project. We'll go into that in more detail in a moment. The DRB would approve that score, as well as table 3, the allocation table. For allocating the new project, Marcotte in the far right in the green columns, as well as a second motion to shift allocation. And I think it'll make a little bit more sense when I share the table. So on page 2 of the table with the green bar at the top is outside the sewer service area. Where we're proposing 7 units in fiscal year 2025 and 1 unit in fiscal year 2026 to the Marcotte project. And then shifting 3 units to the growth center. The second motion is for the growth center and the sewer service area, where a project's not getting new allocation. We're just moving it in on the table because fiscal year 2026 is gonna fall off. After this meeting, and if those units go unallocated, then it's sort of a waste when there might be projects in the future that could use that allocation in fiscal year 33 or 34. So that's an overview of the growth management system and the motions and decisions for this afternoon. If you have any questions, we can take them now before we go into the staff report for the Marcotte project.
So the two shifts are just purely procedural.
Mhm.
They're really so that,
No, I'm just
so
saying,
that future projects,
what I'm trying to say is we've really approved them. We're just making this a procedural issue so we don't lose this next fiscal year 26, right? That's all this is? Okay.
so
Fine. Makes sense.
And actually, I have to do one quick one. We're allowed 80 dwellings a year. Is that what it is?
Hmm.
80 dwellings a year.
Yes,
So how many was those in 26?
so in FY 2026, right now, there's 31 for the growth center, right now, there's 31. There would be 46 total, and then 7 might go unallocated unless there's a project that the zoning administrator can slot in between now and the end of the fiscal year. So rather than having, over 15, 20 units going unallocated, it'll only be 7.
And why wouldn't we shift more from further out to meet some of our housing demand?
So there's a rule that no more than 75% in a given fiscal year can go to a single project, so. DP 2118 is the annex, and that caps them out at that 75%.
So it's that, I mean, that rule can't be waived or varied. Since we have a housing shortage in the state, can we?
No, we can't change that rule. It would have to be a planning commission amendment to say, that most. The upcoming fiscal year. 100% could go to a single project. That would be a planning commission.
It would be an
Amendment.
interesting, question.
Yeah.
To make to them that says that if there are unallocated units and there are approved, projects. And we're within 4 months of the end of the fiscal year,
Mhm,
allocate.
Allocate. Right.
Why not? I mean, that's,
right.
that,
Especially since all this.
There could be more drastic changes to this chapter if we're gonna crack
Well,
open this
yeah.
can, yeah.
It just, to me, it doesn't make sense. That's all I'm like.
Yeah.
Some
The
volunteer.
majority of the projects in the growth center are going to be, a form-based code project where the zoning administrator can give allocation at any point throughout the year. I believe for those projects, those rules,
yeah, the annex was the only one.
yeah,
And then it was done by design to keep it away from form-based code.
yeah. I think within that Taft Corners form-based code district as well, those gray units can be allocated by the zoning administrator. So for the growth center, the majority of the projects will be form-based code, administrative. That 50-75% rule doesn't apply. And a lot of them are inclusionary or meeting that state definition of a priority housing project where they're not even on the growth management table, they're going that inclusionary route.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is kind of a bummer that we can't move things around a little bit more for the year that's about to fall off.
that's me.
So if you're ready, we could go into the Marcotte project.
Yep.
Alrighty. In the room is the applicant, John Marcotte and engineer Brian Courier. This project is located on Caboose Lane off of South Road. It completed pre-application review on November 26, 2024. And they're proposing 8 new dwelling units. This is the first time the project is participating in growth management. There's 4 criterion in this part of town. Conserve energy, where they are proposing 0 points. Provide paths and trails where a trail easement is being, a floating trail easement is being shown across the property. Their staff is recommending 15 points. The 15 points, the statement is, while primitive trails are existing to the internal site, The applicant is not proposing to construct the remaining trail segments in the easement area, so. Historically, projects don't score full points just for the easement, they get most of the points, but not full points. So that's where the staff recommendation is 15 out of 20 points. In conserve open space, the staff recommended score is 25 points. They're committing dedicating the land either to the town. And or providing a third party easement. This land is ranked as a high priority on the ERF prioritization map. Where it's ranked 22 out of 55 parcels. And the final category, minimize visual impact, the recommendation is 10 points because the project will be minimally visible from South Road and some of the higher lots. Might be visible from the Butternut Road and Oak Hill Road intersection, and I can pull up this site plan. There's a couple slight changes since pre-application. It's still a concept level plan. That would be finalized at the discretionary permit phase of review. These are units 6, 7, 8, where they may be visible from Butternut Road. And then lots 1 and 2 would be visible from South Road. So staff recommended total score is 50 points, where a minimum of 40 points is necessary to receive allocation.
ERP members, anybody have any questions for staff relative to the scoring?
Not relative to the scoring, but I have a question. The question on this. If they decided to work with the utility and put a solar field in, would that add towards the energy conservation? If it was used to create a percentage of energy for some of the houses?
That's a good question. So let me pull up the question here.
You may not want to do that, but I'm just wondering if it is some option that somebody could use.
It's still in. So the conserve energy criterion, there we go. Ten points where half of the units incorporate one element, 20 points if all units have one element, and then 100 points for 2 elements. So meeting the elements that they could provide, meeting the efficiency Vermont high performance level, heat pumps. Units generate at least 50% of their estimated energy demand through on-site renewable resources. So I think retroactively, it wouldn't have an impact, say this subdivision gets approved and they decide they want to put solar on the property. We wouldn't go back and change the score. If they were to commit points into it, then we would need to see documentation and administrative permit and final plans that they're going to achieve this. And yeah, after the lots are created, we don't really have zoning authority over solar installations that are grid connected.
Can you go back up to the site plan?
Yeah.
Brian and John, what's the land like? To the south end of the project, in the area where you've got it conserved.
Well, it's high hills, rolling hills, some of it's rock, definitely rocky up there, fully wooded at this point.
Is it wet?
If you're high enough, it's not too bad.
Yeah, it might be wet like down in this corner. You can see our wetland comes in through here.
Right.
It probably does something like this, but it gets pretty steep as it goes.
Get some steep in there.
Yeah.
it seems like it's a big effort to fit the lots in amongst the wet area on the north side. I was kind of curious why you didn't just drive the road in and kept on going if it was drier toward the south end, or is the road too long?
It gets long and, I think we're bound by a certain length.
Yeah, there's a length issue.
Yeah, we got some reprieve from that because we're developing at less than 1 unit per 10 acres. I think there's still a limit.
Yeah, I know there's a limit, it's just. I hate seeing all, limited amount of units. Being put on an awfully big piece of land and
I know,
all it being conserved, especially, in and amongst the time we're all living in with a housing shortage, so here you are giving away a whole bunch of land to the town, nothing against the town, but, and nothing against the way the bylaws are written, but goes on forever, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
we're hopeful to get permits to even get that far with the wetlands program.
all right.
Yeah.
That answered my question.
Yeah, which is why biggest change made, well, no, we had lots over here, we shifted them up here. Like we eliminated another crossing, but
That's why I was just kind of curious if you could have just driven the road right in and then kept,
yeah,
if it was dry back in there, and just kept on going.
yeah,
I know there's length limitations and,
yeah, we'd be into private or public roads at that point, and then the crossings get that much bigger and.
I got it.
What is the strategy on heating, and cooling the houses?
We definitely advocate for it.
We didn't choose that category. We wanted to leave it up to the owners, whether they were gonna do propane or, heat pumps or solar or whatever it may be, but we
So
wanted
give buyer discretion.
yeah, they may very well
Oh, yeah,
choose to do heat
definitely.
pumps, but we're just not gonna take.
I have a
credit for it.
question along that
Got it.
same line,
Yeah.
and. No pun intended, but along that same line is, if you wanna give these future homeowners options, and knowing that many things are. Putting higher and higher demands on electric, if you wanna have those options, and what size service line, what size breaker panels are you planning on putting in? And I know that those are not part of these scores, and that would be a planning commission thing, but if you're talking about wanting to give them options. What kind of power are you supplying the homes with?
Yeah, so we'll, work with, are we Velco in this end? Or not Velco,
Co-op.
not Velco, co-op,
Okay,
yeah,
co-op.
so we'll work with co-op and, they're seeing more people switch over to heat pumps now. If they feel putting in a bigger line at this juncture, given the length is something they'll support, then, it'll go in, but we'll work with them and. If a larger service is necessary, we'll discuss it, but, there's a pretty high voltage line there. And then, it's a pretty good run to get all the way in the back, so,
Yeah, and this is not really your issue, I was just curious,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, to be honest, we work with the energy companies and
So
they're
they
the
make
ones
a
who design.
recommendation, because that can be a limiting factor a lot of times, if you own a house that's got a. 150 panel on a small service line.
Yeah.
You're looking at a big expense if you want to upgrade that.
We'll be providing the underground service up to each lot. We're not building or constructing houses or anything, strictly gonna be selling the lot. And we would go with whatever the co-op recommends for
Got it.
an adequate service extension, whatever that is. As of right now, I don't know what it would be, but
Okay, thanks.
So on the number of units thing, because they have more than 5 on a shared private driveway and they're exceeding that maximum length. They're limited to 1 units per 10 acres, which comes out to about 13 units. Now that's with a density analysis that factors out the wetlands, so. If you were to do that for the entire parcel, there theoretically could be more units. Our bylaw allows for road crossings, but road crossings and utility crossings of streams and wetlands to the minimum extent feasible. But there may be more challenges with the state permitting than our zoning on the maximum number of units. And then there's also septic suitability for the home sites as well.
Yeah, if we could get a private road and get those crossings approved, max densities 54. Even with taking out slopes and wetlands, it's just such a big piece. After 50 consideration
There
too,
lies
you
the
know.
basis of my comment.
Yeah. 250 is also, you know, you see a lot of 8, 9 lot subdivisions, obviously, so. Fortunately, some things the town.
Okay,
All right.
is that it?
Yep, that's it.
Okay,
There were two comment
Well,
letters.
for this one. Oh yeah, we did get comment letters, actually, you're right. They were from the neighbors. The comments were primarily about noise impacts with construction and landscaping. So I informed them that the next phase of review, discretionary permit would be the better time to address some of those comments.
okay, I'll open it up for the two of you to make any comments on the proposed scoring by staff.
No, we're happy with the score.
DRB members, any public questions? No. Okay. Does anybody see any issue with going into deliberative session at this point? No. Okay. All right, so at 3:28, we will go into deliberative session. You're welcome to stay. Outside in the lobby, it's I don't anticipate that we're gonna be back to the Williston Development Review Board meeting of March 20th, 2025. The time is 3:35 PM. The board is out of deliberative session. Is there a motion, motion number 1 for new allocation?
Yes, as authorized by chapter 11 of the Williston Development Bylaw. I, Scott Riley, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the applicant's questionnaire, the recommendations of the town staff, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of March 2025, assign a score and make an allocation of dwelling units to DP 24-05 Marcotte, as shown in tables 2 and 3 above, in accordance with the allocation rules of WDB chapter 11.
Great, thanks, Scott. Is there a second?
Second.
Paul seconds, any discussion? Hearing none, yay or nay? Nate?
Yay.
Paul?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay.
Dave?
Yay.
Chair is a yay, 5 in favor, none opposed, motion carries. Is there a motion for motion number 2 to shift the existing allocation?
Yes, as authorized by chapter 11 of Williston Development Bylaw. I, David Turner, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the recommendations of the town staff and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of March 20th, 2025, make an adjustment of allocation dwelling units as shown on table 3 above, in accordance with the allocation rules of WDB chapter 11.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Nate seconds, any discussion? Hearing none. Yay or nay? Nate?
Yay.
Paul?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay. I'm recusing myself.
Yes.
Yep. Dave Turner?
Yay.
Chair is a yay, 4 in favor, none opposed, 1 recusal. Next up are the minutes of March 11th. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes as drafted?
I'll make the motion.
Scott makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dave Turner seconds. Is there any discussion? Yay or nay? Nate?
Yay.
Paul?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay.
Dave?
Yay.
I'm going to abstain. I was not present. 4 in favor, none opposed, motion carries. Is there anything else to bring forth today?
I just noticed a typo, so this should read 7 in 2026 and 1 in FY 2027. That's how it was reflected in this table because of that 75% rule.
Oh, you mean that +8 thing?
Yeah,
Is this +1, +7?
Wait, but that only for me, right?
Yeah.
So that's Are you guys?
So it should have been this.
Apparently, yeah.
Okay, so we just have a meeting for another.
Okay, noted, so,
This member accepts it's as written.
yeah, that was my question, okay.
Except that it's written.
No objections to the change by DRB members, okay. Okay, is there anything else, staff, anything to bring forth about future DRB meetings or things
Meeting
on the
on,
agenda?
meeting on April 8th, no meeting on April 22nd. We still have a vacancy for the regular seat and the alternate seat.
Is there any applicants, candidates being considered?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any warm bodies at all?
Are you,
Okay.
are you advertising or is it going out in the, Observer or what have you?
The advertising, I don't think has been
I didn't
very
get the pressure.
fruitful. Hopefully they'll be doing more. That comes out of the manager's office.
Yeah.
We do post it. It's at the bottom of every planner's corner email newsletter that we send out.
Yeah.
There's
Heaven
quite a
forbid,
few.
heaven forbid, put it on the front page. Let's see.
I know that I'm not here on April 8th.
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
Cool. Here, maybe.
Don't ask me after August, though, I'll be gone for 6 months,
Yeah.
3 to 6 months, I'll be on the road, yeah.
But you'll be zooming in, right?
I'll be doing, maybe, depends on how I feel when I get close to that point.
Okay, well, we'll figure out the quorum for the first April meeting. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, yeah, it's used to go home early today.